is the knowledge that one day our bodies will cease functioning. So even when we are surrounded by all the conditions for happiness, our joy is not complete. We think that to be happier, we should push away or ignore our fear. We don't feel at ease when we think of the things that scare us, so we deny our fear away. Oh no, I don't want to think about that. We try to ignore our fear, but it is still there. The only way to ease our fear and be truly happy is to acknowledge our fear and look deeply at its source. Instead of trying to escape from our fear, we can invite it up to our awareness and look at it clearly and deeply. We are afraid of things outside of ourselves that we cannot control. We worry about becoming ill, aging, and losing the things we treasure most. We try to hold tight to the things we care about, our positions, our property, our loved ones. But holding tightly doesn't ease our fear. Eventually, one day, we will have to let go of all of them. We cannot take them with us. We may think that if we ignore our fears, they'll go away. But if we bury worries and anxieties in our consciousness, they continue to affect us and bring us more sorrow. We are very afraid of being powerless, but we have the power to look deeply at our fears, and then fear cannot control us. We can transform
Yeah,
fear.
they should just do their own
The
thing.
practice of living fully in the present moment,
I feel that.
we call mindfulness, can give us the
I
courage
feel
to
like
face our
he
fears and no
should.
longer be pushed and pulled around by them.
Yeah, hold on.
To be
Someone.
mindful means to look deeply, to touch our true nature of interbeing and recognize that nothing is ever lost. One day during the Vietnam War, I was sitting in a vacant airfield in the highlands of Vietnam. I was waiting for a plane to go north
Holding
to
for
study a
deployment.
flooding situation.
Take this time to
bring
ready
relief
up.
to the flood victims. The situation was urgent, so I had to go in a
Hostile
military
dropping
plane
into the
that
area.
was usually
Watch
used
the
to
skies.
transport such things as blankets and clothing. I was sitting alone in the airfield, waiting for the next plane, when an American officer came up to me. He was also waiting for his plane. It was during the war, and there were only the two of us at the airfield. I looked at him and saw that he was young. Immediately, I had a lot of compassion for him. Why does he have to come here to kill or be killed? So, out of compassion, I said, "You must be very afraid of the Viet Cong." The Viet Cong were Vietnamese communist guerrillas. Unfortunately, I wasn't very skillful, and what I said watered the seed of fear in him. He immediately touched his gun and asked me, "Are you a Viet Cong?" Before coming to Vietnam, U.S. Army officers had learned that everyone in Vietnam
Hostile
could be a
dropping
Viet
into the
Cong,
area. Watch
and
the
fear
skies.
inhabited every American soldier. Every child, every monk would be a guerrilla agent. The soldiers had been educated this way, and they saw enemies everywhere. I tried to express my sympathy to the soldier, but as soon as he'd heard the word Viet Cong, he'd
Enemy
been
dropping into
overwhelmed
the
by his
AO.
fear and went for his gun. I knew I had to be very calm.
Training's
I practiced
over.
breathing in and
Time to
breathing
see
out
what you've
very
learned.
deeply, and then said, "No, I am waiting for my plane to go to Da Nang to study the flood and see how I can help." I had a lot of sympathy for him, and this came through in my voice. As we talked, I was able to communicate that I believe the war had created a lot of victims, not only Vietnamese,
Dude, I'm in like the
but
most
also Americans.
uncomfortable position, bro.
The soldier calmed down as well, and we were able to talk.
Because my room is not.
I was safe because
My
I had
room's
enough
not set up
lucidity
yet.
and
Like
calm.
I'm in a like
Resurgence.
If
angle.
I had acted out of
Set a
fear,
drop
gotta
point
step
for your
it.
team,
he would have
soldier.
shot me.
Damn, that sounds awful.
So don't
Gas
think that
is
dangers
closing
come
in.
I'm in a
from
Proceed to
DCC
the
a
safe
little
zone.
bit.
They come from inside.
Survive to
If we
redeploy
don't
fallen
acknowledge and look
teammates
deeply
and
at
earn
our
points
own
to
fears,
return them
we can
faster.
draw dangers and accidents to us. We all experience fear.
So
But if we
are
can look
people trying to
deeply
go
into our
out?
fear,
Do you know for
we
his
will be able
birthday
to
or
free
like
ourselves from its
for his
grip
birthday?
and touch joy.
I'm not hearing
50
anything.
remaining.
Focused
Halfway
on
to
the
victory.
past or worried about the future.
We're the only
Targets
ones.
are up.
If we
Honestly,
can
me,
acknowledge our
Alex,
fear,
me and
we
you are
can
the only ones
realize
that are
that right
actually
now
like
we are okay.
fine
Right now,
to hang out with
today,
him.
we
I
are
haven't heard
still
anything at
alive,
all.
and our bodies are working marvelously.
Oh, shoot, no,
Our eyes can still see the
no,
beautiful sky.
I was just
Our
Beginning
wondering.
ears
flyover.
can still hear the voices of our loved ones.
I thought I saw one over here. Or
The
is that
first
you,
part of
Jerry?
looking
At the
at our
lighthouse.
fear is just
over
inviting
here.
it into our awareness without
It's
judgment.
probably me.
We just
over here.
acknowledge
Enemy
gently that it
UAV
is there.
active.
This brings a lot of relief already.
Yeah, I guess.
Then, once our fear has calmed down, we can embrace it tenderly and look deeply into its roots,
UAV
its
is out of
sources.
fuel. Returning for resupply.
Understanding the origins of our anxieties and fears will help us let go of them. Is our fear coming from
Alright,
something
get
that
him
is
that
happening
share.
right now? Or
At
is
least
it an
nobody's
old
here
fear?
though.
A fear from when we were small that we
They're
kept
shooting from the
inside.
lighthouse though.
When we
Lighthouse?
practice inviting all
Yeah.
our fears out, we become aware that we are still alone. That we still have many things to treasure and enjoy. If we are not
I
busy
saw
pushing
one
back our fear,
The orange is
we
pushing.
can
Hold on.
enjoy the sunshine, the fog, the air, and the water.
Orange doesn't
If
even
you
give a
can
heads
look
up.
deeply into your fear, and have a clear vision,
Right here, there's one right
then
here.
you really can live a life that is worthwhile. Our greatest fear is that when we die, we will become nothing. To really be free of fear, we must look deeply into the ultimate dimension to see
Okay.
our true nature of no birth and no death. We need to free
bottom right
ourselves from these
window.
ideas that we are just our
You're
bodies
back in
which
the
die.
action.
When we understand that we are more than our physical bodies, that we didn't come from nothingness and will not disappear
Door, had the
in
door.
nothingness, we are liberated from fear.
He's cracked.
The Buddha
Aw,
was a
bruh.
human being, and he also
here.
knew fear.
Behind
He's
the
gonna
car.
push me.
But because he spent each day
is
practicing
inbound.
mindfulness and looking
I
closely
think you
at
go shit
his
to that
fear,
car.
when
Bulletproof.
confronted
Oh,
with
you
the
be
unknown,
running.
he was able to
he's
face
not-
it calmly and peacefully. There is a story about
Part
a
of
child
There's
who
one
was
on
out
the ocean
hunting,
side.
and Angulimala,
Oh, there's two of them.
a serial killer, came upon
Squad
him.
member is redeployed.
Angulimala shouted for the Buddha
Oh
to stop.
shit, cracked him.
But
Two
the
of them.
Buddha kept walking, slowly and calmly.
Oh shit.
Angulimala caught up with him.
Watch out, I'm
and
right,
asked
I'm right, I'm right.
why he hadn't stopped.
Get out of there.
The Buddha replied, Angulimala, I stopped a long time ago. It is
There's a
you
whole team
who
Enemy
coming, watch
soldier
out.
stop.
nearby.
Right here.
Squad
He went
member
on
is
to explain,
redeploying.
I stopped committing
Enemy
acts.
Oh, don't tell me I
that
accidentally
caused
dropped the
suffering to
gun.
other beings.
Nah, I got the
All
wrong
jumping
gun.
deep.
beings want to live. All fear death.
Got some lethals
We
here.
must nurture a heart of compassion to protect the lives of all beings.
Really?
Starting, Angulimala asked to know more. By the end of the conversation, Angulimala vowed never again to commit violent acts and decided to become a monk. How could the Buddha remain so calm and relaxed when faced with a
I say
murder?
we push a winery, no?
This is an extreme example, but each of us faces our fears in one way or another every day.
Loadout drop headed your
The
way.
daily practice of mindfulness can be of enormous help. Beginning with our breath,
Dropping
beginning
there.
with awareness, we are able to meet whatever
Honestly,
comes our
all the
way.
loadouts right here.
Fearlessness is not only
Yeah, close
possible,
load out first.
it
Get
is
to the
the
new
ultimate
safe
Watch out from
zone.
behind us.
Gas is closing
When you
in.
touch
Okay.
non-fear, you are free. If I am ever in an airport and the pilot announces that the plane is about to crash,
Go
I will
stop her.
practice mindful breathing.
Bro, can you get your
If you receive bad news, I hope you will do the same. But don't
Yeah,
wait for the critical moment to arrive before you start practicing to transform your fear and live mindfully. Nobody can give you fearlessness.
Scanning for supplies.
Even if the
Let's
Buddha
find
was
some
sitting
upgrades.
right here next to you, he couldn't give it to you. You have to practice and realize it yourself. If you make a habit of mindfulness practice, when difficulties arise, you will already know what to do.
UAV.
A time
One's
before,
already kind
Done with the search. Returning to base.
Oh, there's no
many of
store
us don't
around here.
remember this, but a long time
There's a
ago,
buy
Enemy
station.
we
UAV
lived
active.
inside our mother's womb.
Clock's ticking.
I'm a-
We were
Make your
there's
way
a
to
person
the
buy
living
zone.
station.
human beings. There were two hearts inside
You
your
buy a
mother's
freaking
body,
ammunition.
her own
Ammunition
heart
box.
and your heart. During
It's over
this
here by
time,
winery
your mother
now.
did
I need
everything for you.
recon
No, there's no way.
She breathed
Contract
for
is
you,
settled.
ate
Good
for
work
you,
out there.
drank for you.
Yeah,
You
basically.
were linked to her through the
UAV
umbilical
getting
cord.
flyover.
Oxygen and
Yeah,
food
but-
came to you through the umbilical cord.
Yeah, I'm by
And you were
position
safe
airstrike.
and content inside of your
Ammunition
mother.
box.
You were never too hard to
Want me to get the
Oh.
ammo box?
You were very
I
comfortable.
got it. Oh shit.
You rested on a solid
I got that.
Alright, I'll get a cluster.
in China and Vietnam.
I got a
UAV is
position.
out of
We
fuel.
called the room
Returning for
the
resupply.
palace of the child.
Someone grab
You
this
spent
cluster.
about 9 months in the palace. The 9 months you spent in the womb were some of the most pleasant times
Oh
of your
shit.
life. Then the
Yo,
day of your
oh,
birth
we're being
arrived.
sniped.
Everything
Think
felt
on top of
different,
winery?
and you were thrust into a new environment. You felt cold
Gas
and
is right on your
hungry
tail.
for the
Take
first
care.
time.
Enemy UAV
Sounds
active.
were too loud. Lights
Dude, wake up.
too bright.
All right.
For the first time,
Yo, what up for me? What
you
up for
felt
me?
afraid.
Hold on.
This
What
is
up?
original fear.
UAV is
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
fuel.
Inside the
Returning
palace
for
of the
resupply.
child, you didn't need to use your own lungs. At the moment of your birth,
Yo, wait for
someone cut
Robert.
you
Robert,
open,
hop on.
and you were no longer physically joined with your mother. Your mother could no longer breathe for you.
Alright, go to
You
the
had to
circle.
learn how to breathe on
Go
your
inside the
own
circle.
for the first time. If you couldn't breathe on your own, you
Go
died.
to like over here.
Birth was an extremely precarious time. You were pushed out of the palace, and you encountered
Dude,
suffering.
stay still.
You tried to inhale, but it was difficult. There was some liquid in your
God
lungs.
damn,
To
bro.
breathe in, you had to first push out that liquid. We were born.
My guy is
somebody get us
lit.
out of there.
At birth,
Hostile
our
dropping into the
fear
area.
I was
born.
picking
Watch the
some
sky.
fool
Along
over
with
here,
the
the
desire to
sniper.
survive.
My bad, bro.
Yep,
This
Oh,
that's
yeah.
coming
original
towards us.
desire.
There's a guy over here.
As infants,
Backside.
each one of us knew
Backside of this,
that
like,
to
right here, like
survive,
I got
we
Yeah.
had to get someone to take care of us.
Right,
Even
that's
He's
it.
after
cracked.
our
That's it.
umbilical cord was cut,
it.
we still had to rely entirely on adults to survive.
He's gone.
When you
Gas is
depend on
moving in.
someone or
New
something
safe
else
zone
to survive,
Watch
it
out
means
over
that
here.
alone, a kind of invisible
here.
umbilical cord is still there between us.
Sniper.
When we grow up, our original
That
fears
massive.
and original desires are still there. Although we are no longer babies, we
He's
still
down, he's
fear
down.
that we cannot survive, that no one will take care of us. Every desire
That's
in our lives
Don't try to jump this fence, it's not letting me.
He's down.
fundamental desire to survive. As babies, we all find ways to ensure our
Sweeping
survival.
for supplies. Let's
We may
increase
have
that.
felt very powerless. We
He's
had
back up,
legs,
watch
but
out.
Finish him off.
we had hands, but
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
grasp
Oh,
it.
get his shit, get his shit.
We had to figure out how to get someone else to protect
Resurgence
us,
is about
take
to
care
end.
of us,
Keep
and
your head on a
ensure our
swivel.
survival.
Yeah, I need more ammo
Hostile
on
dropping
this.
into
Everyone
the
is
area.
afraid sometimes.
Watch the sky.
We fear loneliness,
Fire sales
being
done.
abandoned,
Prices
growing
are
old,
back to normal.
dying, and being sick.
Done with the
Watch out,
search.
top of the
Returning
Many
to
other
base.
things. Sometimes we may feel fear without knowing exactly why.
Down.
If we practice looking deeply, we see that this fear is the result of that
Sniper.
original fear from the time we were newborns, helpless and unable to do anything for ourselves.
Cracked.
Even though we have grown into adults,
Yo, meet
that
up with me
original
and have an
fear
ammunition
and
box.
original desire are both still alive. Our
Yellow.
desire
He's
to
going
have a
that-
partner is, in part, a continuation of our desire
the ammo
to have
box.
someone to
We'll
take
cover
care
it.
of.
Hold up, hold up. Yo,
Sniper's
hold up.
down.
We're often afraid to remember or be in touch with that original fear and desire. Because
Okay,
the
I'm
first child
I'm
guy
gonna
up there
drop it
on
right
the
here.
stairwell.
I'm dropping it right here.
we
Yeah,
haven't had a
distract him.
chance to talk to him or her.
You just
We haven't taken the time to care
Ah,
for the wounded
I
child,
got
the
distracted by
helpless
it.
child within.
Yo, pick him up, pick him up, pick him up.
Most of us,
Oh,
our
give my
original fear
shit,
is
give my
to
shit,
rise
give my
in
shit,
some
give my
form.
shit.
Sometimes we
The
might
full
feel
ammo.
scared of being alone.
I'll get
You
Boston,
may
there's
feel
an
that
ammunition box
I'll
over
get
here.
you gun.
alone, I can't make it. I have to
I
have
just threw
something.
a snapshot over this way.
This is a
Nobody's over here.
continuation
Enemy
of our
UAV
original
It's
fear.
personal supply right here.
Oh my god, I got a whole squad.
You will find
Here,
that
over
we
here.
have
Give me the rubber
calm
band.
our fear and find
I need help, guys.
Where you at? What
We
color?
need to look closely at our relationships to see whether they
Right
are
over
based
here.
primarily on mutual need or on mutual happiness.
I'm getting down, I'm
We
getting
have a
down.
tendency to think that our partner has the power to make us feel good, and that we're not okay unless we have that other person there. We think,
Somebody's
I
dropping
need
in
this
the back.
person to take care of me, or I will not
Somebody's
survive.
dropping in back a key.
If your relationship is
Get out,
based on
stack it.
fear rather than on mutual understanding and happiness,
I'll go with
it
orange,
doesn't have
orange.
a solid
Enemy
foundation.
UAV active.
You
Orange,
may
here,
feel
shoot.
you
Hostile
require
dropping
that
into the
person for your
area.
own happiness.
Enemy UAV
And yet,
active.
at
I
some
just heard
point, you may find the presence of the other
Yeah.
person
Right,
to
throw
be a
another
nuisance
snapshot out.
and want to get rid of him. Then you know for sure that your
Where you
feelings of peace and security did
Oh,
not
watch out,
really
on
come
top,
from
on top,
that
on top.
person.
On top, orange.
Similarly,
Over
if you
here.
like to spend a lot of your time at a cafe,
Right here, behind you, behind you.
it may not be because that particular cafe is so interesting.
He's up top.
It may be because you're afraid of being alone. You feel that you always have to be with other people.
He jumped out.
When you turn on the television,
Gas is
Oh, you
it
fucking
may
inbound.
not
scared
be
me.
because there's a fascinating program to see.
I like
It's
this on
because
you,
you're
on you.
afraid of being alone with yourself.
down.
You made the top
If
25.
you're afraid of what
Nearly
other people
there.
might think of you,
Good
it
shit.
comes from that same place.
Oh, watch out behind you, bro. Watch out
You're
over here.
afraid that if
He's coming,
others
he's
think
coming.
negatively about you, they won't accept you, and you'll be
Throw a
left all
snapshot your
alone.
way.
I down one.
So if you need
Oh,
to
he's gonna have to
push towards you,
always
watch
think
out.
well of
There's
it,
two.
Yeah, the
that
gas
is a
is gonna get out.
continuation of that same original fear. If you regularly go shopping
Three over there,
for
three that way,
clothes,
three that way.
it's because of that same desire. You want to be accepted by
Fuck, I
Killed
others.
only have
You're
16
afraid
bullets,
of
man.
rejection. You're
I
afraid
got
you'll
two
be
wife with,
abandoned and left alone.
landmine.
With no one to
Yeah,
take care of
you got
They
that,
just
bro.
bought back over here.
We have to
They
look
just bought
deeply
back at the
to
buy right here.
identify the original form of fear and desire that are behind
I got
so many
played
of
up.
our behaviors. Every one of the fears and
Go
desires that we
snapshot.
have today is a continuation of original
Somebody
fear
back there.
and desire.
Hey,
One
good
night I
hit.
was walking,
T-mine's
and I felt something like an
got gas
umbilical
inbound.
cord
Safe
leaking
I'm
zone.
out
buying,
of
I'm
the
buying
sky.
armor for the...
Hostile
I got
dropping
box. I
into
got
the
armor
area.
box.
Watch the
So that the
skies.
sun was not there,
No, I
I
bought
would
plates
die.
already. I bought
Buying
plates.
a UAV.
Gas is
then
inbound.
I saw an
Pop it,
umbilical
pop it,
cord
pop it.
linking
Friendly
me to the
Anybody need
river.
plates? I got a plate box.
I knew that if the
UAV
river
Hey,
was
there's a guy
there
up here,
is.
there's a guy
I
up
would
here.
also die,
I need some
Really?
ammo.
because there would be no water for me to
Oh, never
drink.
mind, never mind, never mind.
And I
should've
saw
bought
an
ammo box. I'm
umbilical
gonna throw a
cord linking
snapshot
me to the forest.
inside.
The trees in the
Right now?
forest were creating oxygen for me to breathe.
Nobody popped up this way.
Come out on top.
And I saw an umbilical
know if you
cord
guys need
linking
plate
me to
box.
the farmer who grows the vegetables. wheat,
Personal
and
supply
rice
box.
that I
I'm
could
here, right here.
UAV is out of fuel.
When
Returning
you
for
practice
Snapshot.
meditation,
gas
Second.
inbound.
you begin to
Safe
see
zone
things
relocated.
that other people do not see.
There's a guy on top.
Although you don't see
Yeah,
them
they're playing
these
up top.
umbilical cords, they are there, linking you to your
Somebody's
mother,
close by. Oh shit.
the sun, the river,
Where?
the forest, and so on. Meditation is
Damn it.
visualization.
Down them, killed them.
If you
Stupid
draw a
mask,
picture of
dude.
yourself
I hate
using the
that
umbilical
thing.
cord, you would discover
another one out here?
that there are not only 5 or 10,
Hey,
but
T-mine's
maybe
down.
hundreds or thousands of them. And you are linked to them all.
Plate up. I got a plate up.
Where I live in Southwest France. We like to use guidance.
On me, on me.
Short practice plans that we recite silently aloud throughout the day to help us live deeply every
Plate up.
action of our daily life. We have a gata for waking up in the morning, a gata for brushing our teeth, and even gatas for
Probably
using
not
the
working.
phone or the computer. The gata we say as we serve our food
Oh, no
goes
way.
like
Come on,
this.
dude.
In this
No,
food,
this
I
was-
see
that was-
clearly
shouldn't
the
have
presence
saved him.
of the entire
No,
universe
my bad.
supporting my existence.
If I die, you go bye bye.
Looking deeply into the
Oh, no, I'm
vegetables, we
fine.
see sunshine is inside, cloud is inside,
UV2.
the
No,
earth
it's
is
UV1.
inside, and a lot of
universal.
hard, loving work is also there in the food before us. Looking in this way, even if no one else is sitting down with us to share that meal, we know that our community, our ancestors, Mother Nature, and the whole cosmos are right there with us and inside us in every moment. We never need to feel alone.
You gotta be up top.
One of the first things we can do to soothe our fear is to talk to it. You can sit down with that fearful child inside and be gentle with him or her.
No!
Say something
Run it
like,
back.
Still standing.
"Dear
Next
little
time,
child,
Run it back.
I was gonna say
I
pop
am
that
your
precision,
self.
but my mic was
I
off.
would like to tell
come
you
back stronger.
that we are no longer helpless and vulnerable. We have strong
Good try, Derek.
strong feet.
Hey, good shit, bro. Good shit.
Yeah, good shit.
So there is no reason why we have to continue to be fearful anymore. I believe that talking to the child like that can be very helpful, because the inner child may be deeply wounded, and the child has been waiting for us to come back to her. All her childhood wounds are still there, and we have been so busy that we have had no time to go back and help the child heal. That is why it's very important to take the time to go back, to recognize the presence of the wounded child in us, to talk to him, and try to help him heal. We can remind him several times that we are no longer a helpless child. We have grown up into an adult, and we can very well take care of ourselves. Practice. Talking to your inner child. Put down 2 cushions. First, sit on one cushion and pretend you are the helpless, vulnerable child. You express yourself. Dear one, I am very helpless. I cannot do anything. It's very dangerous. I'm going to die. Nobody is taking care of me. You have to speak the language of the baby. And while you are expressing yourself like that, if the feelings of fear, hopelessness, stress, and helplessness come up, please allow them to come up and recognize them. Allow the helpless child enough time to express herself fully. This is very important. After she is finished, move to the other cushion to play the role of the adult self. As you look at the other cushion, Imagine the helpless child is sitting there and talk to her. Listen to me. I am your adult self. You are no longer a helpless child. We have grown up into an adult already. We have enough intelligence to protect ourselves. You will see that the feeling of safety and security you want to feel doesn't need to come from clinging to another person or from constantly distracting yourself. Acknowledging and soothing the fear within is the first step in letting it go. Understanding that we are now safe is essential for those of us who have suffered abuse, fear, or pain in our past. Sometimes we may need a friend, a brother, a sister, a teacher, to help us not fall back into the past. We have grown up. We're now capable, not just of defending ourselves, but of living fully in the present moment and giving to others. Original fear. Many of us often find ourselves thinking of things that stir up feelings of fear and sorrow. We have all experienced some suffering in our past, and we often recall our past suffering. We revisit the past, reviewing it and watching the films of the past. But if we revisit these memories without mindfulness or awareness, every time we watch those images, we suffer again. Suppose you were abused as a young child. You suffered greatly. You were fragile and vulnerable. You were likely afraid all the time. You didn't know how to protect yourself. Perhaps in your mind you continued to be abused again and again, even though you were an adult now. You were no longer that child who was fragile and vulnerable, with no means of defense. Yet you continue to experience the suffering of the child, because you always revisit those memories, even though they are painful. There is a film, an image stored in your consciousness. Every time your mind goes back to the past and you look at that image or watch that film, you suffer again. Mindfulness reminds us that it is possible to be in the here and now. It reminds us that the present moment is always available to us. We don't have to live events that happened long ago. Suppose someone slapped your face 20 years ago. That was recorded as an image in your subconscious. Your subconscious stores many films and images of the past, which are always being projected down there. And you have a tendency to go back and watch them again and again, so you continue to suffer. Every time you see that picture, you are slapped again and again and again. But that is only the past. You are no longer in the past. You are in the present moment. That did happen, yes, in the past. The past is already gone. Now the only things left are pictures and memories. If you keep going back to the past to review those images, that is wrong mindfulness. But if we root ourselves in the present moment, we can look at the past in a different way and transform its suffering. Perhaps when you were a little child, people would sometimes take your toy away from you. You learned to cry, to try to manipulate the situation, or to smile so as to please your caretaker to make her give back the toy. As a young child, you learn to produce a diplomatic smile. That's one way of dealing with the problem of survival. You learn without even knowing that you're learning. The feeling that you're fragile, vulnerable, unable to defend yourself, the feeling that you always need someone to be with you is always there. That original fear, and its other face, original desire, is always there. The infant, with his fear and his desire, is always alive in us. Some of us have depression and continue to suffer even if in the present situation everything looks all right. This is because we have a tendency to dwell in the past. We feel more comfortable making our home there, even if it holds a lot of suffering. That home is deep down in our subconscious, where the films of the past are always projected. Every night, you go back and watch those films and suffer. And the future you constantly worry about is nothing other than a projection of fear and desire from the past. Don't fear the past. Because it's so easy to be caught in the past, it's helpful to have a reminder to stay in the present. In Plum Village, we use a bell. When we hear the bell, we practice breathing in and out mindfully, and we say, "I listen to the bell. This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home." My true home is in the here and now. The past is not my true home. You may want to say to the little one inside you, the past is not our home. Our home is here, where we can really live our life. We can get all the nourishment and healing we need here in the present moment. Much of the fear, anxiety, and anguish that we experience is there because the inner child has not been liberated. That child is afraid to come out to the present moment, and so your mindfulness, your breath, can help this child to realize that she is safe and can be free. Suppose you go to the movies. From your seat in the audience, you look up at the screen. There is a story. There are people on the screen interacting with each other. And down there in the audience, you cry. You experience what's happening on the screen as real, and that's why you shed real tears and feel real emotions. The suffering is real. The tears are real. But when you come up to touch the screen, you don't see any real people. It's nothing but flickering light. You can't talk to the people on the screen. You can't invite them to have tea. You can't stop them or ask them a question. But yet, it can create real suffering in your body as well as your mind. Our memories can cause us real suffering, both emotionally and physically, even though they are not happening in the moment. When we recognize that we have a habit of replaying old events and reacting to new events as if they were the old ones, we can begin to notice when that habit energy comes up. We can then gently remind ourselves that we have another choice. We can look at the moment as it is, a fresh moment, and leave the past for a time when we can look at it compassionately. We can make the time and space, not in a busy moment but in a quiet time, to tell the suffering, wounded child inside us that she doesn't have to suffer anymore. We can take her hand and invite her to come into the present moment and witness all the wonders of life that are available here and now. Come with me, dear one. We have grown up. We no longer need to be afraid. We are no longer vulnerable. We are no longer fragile. We don't have to be afraid anymore. You have to teach the child in you. You have to invite him to come with you and live life with you in the present moment. Of course, we can mindfully reflect upon and learn from the past. But when we do this, we stay grounded in the present moment. If we are well grounded in the present moment, we can look skillfully at the past and learn from it without being sucked in and overwhelmed by it. Contemplating the future without fear. We likewise can prepare for the future without getting consumed by our plans. Often, we either don't plan at all or we get caught up in obsessive planning because we fear the future and its uncertainty. The present moment is where we need to operate. When you are truly anchored in the present moment, you can plan for the future in a much better way. Living mindfully in the present does not preclude making plans. It only means that you know there's no use losing yourself in worries and fear concerning the future. If you are grounded in the present moment, you can bring the future into the present to have a deep look without losing yourself in anxiety and uncertainty. If you are truly present and know how to take care of the present moment as best you can, you are doing your best for the future already. The same is true about the past. The teaching and the practice of mindfulness do not forbid looking deeply into the past. But if we allow ourselves to drown in regret and sorrow concerning the past, that's not right mindfulness. If we're well established in the present moment, we can bring the past back to the present moment and have a deep look. You can very well examine the past and the future while you are established in the present moment. In fact, you can learn from the past and plan for the future in the best way if you are grounded in the present moment. If you have a friend who suffers, you have to help him. My dear friend, you are on safe ground. Everything is okay now. Why do you continue to suffer? Don't go back to the past. It's only a ghost. It's unreal. And whenever we recognize that these are only movies and pictures, not reality, we are free. That is the practice of mindfulness. Reconciling with our past. Our original fear isn't just from our own birth and childhood. The fear we feel comes from both our own and our ancestors' original fear. Our ancestors suffered from hunger and other dangers, and there were moments when they were extremely anxious. That kind of fear has been transmitted to us. Every one of us has that fear inside. And because we suffer from that fear, we make the situation worse. We worry about our safety, our job, and our family. We worry about external threats. Even when nothing bad is happening, that doesn't prevent us from feeling fear. Once, a young American came to Plum Village and practiced meditation with several others. During this time, I suggested to everyone present that they write, regardless of whether that parent was still living. Writing a letter is a form of meditation practice. This young man could not do it, because every time he thought of his father, he suffered greatly. His father had already died, and yet he could not reconcile with him. His father had terrified him when he was growing up, so much so that even now he was afraid to speak to him through a letter. He could not bear to even think of his father, much less write to him. So I gave him an exercise to practice for 1 week. Breathing in, I see myself as a 5-year-old child. Breathing out, I smile to that 5-year-old child. When you are a small boy or girl, you are very fragile, very vulnerable. Just a stern look from your father can create a little wound in your heart. If your father tells you to shut up, you can get wounded. You are very tender. Sometimes you want to express yourself. You try very hard to find words, and your father is a little irritated, and he says, "Shut up." It is like a bowl of ice water being poured on your heart. It wounds you deeply, and the next time you will not dare to try again. Your communication with your father becomes very difficult. Breathing in, I see myself as a 5-year-old child. Breathing out, I smile to that 5-year-old child. Do you think that child is no longer there? The little boy or girl in you is still alive and may be still deeply wounded. That child is calling for your attention. But you have no time for him or her. You're too busy. You conceive of yourself as an adult, but in fact, you are also that little girl or boy who is deeply wounded and afraid. So when you breathe in and see yourself as a small child who is fragile like that, compassion is born in your heart. And when you breathe out, you smile to him or her, and that is already a smile of understanding, of compassion. The little child inside you can suffer so much. When you were small, you were deeply affected by the decisions adults made around you. A child is very impressionable. Even before he or she is born, a child hears sounds and can distinguish shouting from singing. This is why, if you really care for your child, even when your child is not yet born, you will surround that child with love. Love should begin very early. There are many young people who say they hate their fathers or mothers. They sometimes tell me in strong, clear terms, "I don't want to have anything to do with him, with her." These people are so angry with their parents that they want to completely sever the relationship. Sometimes people have good reasons for separating themselves physically or emotionally from their parents, especially if their parents are abusive. Sometimes we fear that if we are around our parents, we will be too vulnerable and will get hurt again. But even if we refuse to see our parents or talk to them, we cannot separate ourselves completely from them. We are made from them. We are our fathers. We are our mothers. This is true even if we think we hate them. We are the continuation of our mothers and fathers. We can't extract that part of ourselves. To get angry with our parents doesn't change this. We are only getting angry with ourselves. We need to reconcile with the parents inside, talk to the parents inside, and look for a way to peacefully coexist. If we can realize this, reconciliation will be easy. We are capable of great change, both internally and also in our ability to influence the world around us. Because we are scared, we often think we don't know what to do. But we only need to practice mindful walking and mindful breathing to cultivate the energy of mindfulness and understanding. Understanding, when it comes, helps us release our fear, our anger, our hate, and so on. Love can only be born on the ground of understanding. When we say that body and mind are connected, this does not mean just your own individual body and mind. In you are all your blood ancestors and also your spiritual ancestors. You can touch the presence of your father and mother in each cell of your body. They are truly present in you, along with your grandparents and great-grandparents. Doing this, you know you are their continuation. You may have thought that your ancestors no longer existed, but even scientists say your ancestors are present in you, in the genetic heritage that is in every cell of your body. The same is true for your descendants. You will be present in every cell of their bodies, and you are present in the consciousness of everyone you have touched. Think of a plum tree. In each plum on the tree, there is a pit. That pit contains the plum tree and all previous generations of plum tree. The plum pit contains an infinite number of plum trees. Inside the pit is an intelligence, a wisdom that knows how to become a plum tree, how to produce branches, leaves, flowers, and plums. It cannot do this on its own. It can do this only because it has received the experience and adaptations of so many generations of ancestors. You are the same. You
Check your
possess the
gear and
wisdom
weapons. We
intelligence
go soon.
to become a full human being because you have inherited an eternity of wisdom, not only from your blood ancestors, but from your
Enemy
spiritual
dropping into
ancestors
the AO.
too. Your spiritual ancestors are in you because what you are by nature and what you are by nurture cannot be separated. Nurturing transforms your inherited nature. Your spirituality and your mindfulness practice, which are parts of your daily life, are also
Enemy
in every
soldiers
cell of
nearby.
your body. So your spiritual ancestors are in every cell of your body. You cannot deny their presence. Some of us have wonderful parents. Others have parents who suffered a lot and made their partners and their children suffer. Just about everyone has some blood ancestors whom we admire, and others who had many negative traits and of whom we are not proud. They are all our ancestors. We may also have spiritual ancestors who did not help us
Hostile
and may
dropping
even
into
have
the
done
area.
harm.
Watch the skies.
We may be angry with them, but they are still our ancestors. We need to return to ourselves and embrace our blood and spiritual ancestors. We cannot get rid of them. They are a reality, and they are there inside us, in body, mind, and spirit. Unconditional acceptance is the first step in opening the door to the miracle of forgiveness. Practice accepting our ancestors. To sincerely accept others as they are, we must begin with ourselves. If we cannot accept ourselves as we are, we will never be
Gas is
able to
closing
accept
on your
others.
position.
When
Suggest
I
you
look at
start
myself,
running.
I see positive,
Fallen allies will
admirable, and
redeploy
even
as long
remarkable
as you
things.
remain alive.
But I also
Earn
know that
points
there are
to
negative
bring them
parts of
back
me.
to the action faster.
So first, I recognize and accept myself.
Got movement!
Breathing in
Got
and
movement!
breathing out,
Got movement!
you visualize your ancestors, and you see all their positive and negative
Got
points.
movement!
Time to
Be
cover your
determined
tracks.
to
There's
accept
an
them
enemy
all
team
as
hunting
your
for you.
ancestors without hesitation. Dear ancestors, I am you with all your strengths and weaknesses. I see you have negative and positive seeds. I understand that you have been lucky and that good seeds like kindness, compassion, and fearlessness were watered in you. I also
Reinforcements
understand
are on the
that
way.
if you were not lucky and negative seeds like fear,
Targets are up.
greed,
Take
and
'em
jealousy
out.
were watered in you, then the positive seeds did not have a chance to grow. When a person's positive seeds are watered in life, it is partly because of luck and partly because of effort. The circumstances of our lives can help us water the seeds of patience, generosity, compassion, and love. The people around us can help us water these seeds, and so can the practice of mindfulness. But if a person grows up in a time of war or in a family and community that is suffering, that person may be full of despair and fear. Parents who suffer a lot and are afraid of the world and other people water the seeds of fear and anger in their children. If children grow up embraced by security and love, the good seeds in them are nurtured and grow strong. If you can look at your ancestors in this way, you will understand that they were human beings who suffered and tried their best. That understanding will erase all rejection and anger. Accepting all your ancestors with both their strengths and their weaknesses will help you become more peaceful and less afraid. You can also see your elder brothers and sisters as your youngest ancestors, because they were born before you. They too have strengths and challenges like all of us. Making peace with your ancestors takes some practice, but it is important to reconcile with them if you are to settle the fear within yourself. You can do this anywhere, before an altar or a tree, on a mountain, or in the city. All you need to do is visualize the presence of all your ancestors inside you. You are their continuation.
Here located.
Only when you make your peace with them can you be 100% in the moment. Releasing fears about the future. The 5 remembrances. In addition to getting caught in dwelling on events that happened in the past, we often walk around in fear of what will happen to us in the future. The fear of death is one of the greatest fears people have. When we look directly into the seeds of this fear, instead of trying to cover it up or run away, we begin to transform it. One of the most powerful ways to do this is with the practice of the 5 remembrances. If you breathe slowly and mindfully, in and out, deep and slow, while you say these remembrances to yourself, it will help you look deeply into the nature and roots of your fear. The 5 remembrances are: 1. I am of the nature to grow old. I cannot escape growing old. 2. I am of the nature to have ill health. I cannot escape having ill health. 3. I am of the nature to die. I cannot escape death.
Gas is closing in.
4.
Relocating the safe zone.
All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them.
Go stop them.
5. I inherit the results of my acts of body,
Enemy
speech, and
UAV
mind.
active.
My actions are my continuation.
Enemy UAV
Looking
active.
deeply at each remembrance and breathing in and out with our awareness of each one, we engage our fear in an empowered way. I am of the nature to grow old. I cannot
Enemy
escape
UAV
growing
active.
old. That is the first remembrance. Breathing in, I know I am of the nature to grow old. Breathing out, I know I can't escape growing old. We are all afraid of getting old. We don't want to think about it. We want that fear to stay peacefully down there, far away from us. This contemplation comes from the Sutra in the Anguttara Nikaya 3, pages 70 to 71. Surely, I will have to grow old. This is a truth that is universal and inevitable, but most of us don't want to acknowledge it, so we live more or less in denial. Yet down deep in the recesses of our minds, we know it's true. When we suppress our fearful thoughts, they continue to fester there in the dark. We are driven to consume food,
Reinforcements are on
alcohol,
the way.
movies, etc.
Friendly
in
loadout
an
drop on
attempt
the
to
way.
forget and keep those thoughts from surfacing in our conscious mind. Running away from our fear ultimately makes us suffer and makes others suffer, and our fear only grows stronger. We must be able to accept this
Gas
as
is right on
reality,
your tail.
as the truth, and not just as a logical fact. Reciting this remembrance is not mere restatement of the
Care
obvious,
package marked.
but a chance to take in a truth that we need to experience directly. We can take a few moments to let that truth penetrate
One of
into our
your
flesh and
allies is
bones.
back in the game.
We shouldn't just leave it to our intellectual understanding. Yes, of course, now I'm young, but one day I'll get old. That's just an
Enemy
abstract
UAV
notion
active.
that brings no benefit, especially since our mind usually works to repress and forget about it right away after we say it. The Buddha taught that when we call up and get in touch with the truth that we cannot escape old age and death, our fear and the foolish things we do to try not to feel it
UAV
will
beginning
cease.
flyover.
We no longer act out our fears unconsciously and fuel the cycle that makes them grow ever stronger. I am of the nature to have ill health and cannot escape having ill health. The second remembrance recognizes that sickness is a universal phenomenon. Breathing in,
UAV
I
is out of
know
fuel.
I am of the
Turning for
nature to
resupply.
have ill health. Breathing
Gas is
out,
moving in.
I
New
know
safe
I
zone
can't escape
highlighted.
having ill health. Siddhartha, as the Buddha was called before he practiced and
Fire
became
sale
enlightened,
is active.
was one of the
Fire
strongest
station
young
costs are
men in
adjusted.
Kapilavastu. He often took
Enemy
first
soldier
place in
nearby.
sporting contests, and everyone, including his envious cousin Devadatta, dreamed of having Siddhartha's prowess. Siddhartha naturally became arrogant, knowing that few people were as strong as he.
UAV active.
But when he practiced looking deeply in sitting meditation, Siddhartha recognized his arrogance and was able to let go of it. If we are in normal good health, we may think getting sick is for other people. We look down on others, saying they're always getting sick
Insurgents is
from
about
nothing
to
at all.
end. Keep your
They
head on
have
the
to take
swivel.
medicine and receive massage all the
25
time.
remaining.
We think we're not like them.
Fire sales
But
done.
one day,
Prices
we will
are back to
likely
normal.
also fall sick. If we are not diligent in contemplating this reality now, then when that day suddenly comes upon us, we won't be able to handle it. Our legs are still strong now. We can run, do walking meditation, play salsa. We can still use our arms to do many things.
Gas
But
is
most of us
inbound.
aren't making good use of our ability to take good care of others and ourselves. We don't use our energy for the practice of transforming our afflictions and helping to relieve suffering in others and ourselves. One day, we'll be lying down on the bed.
Enemy dropping into
Even
the
if we
AO.
want nothing more than just to stand up and take one step, we won't be able to do it. That's why we must see right in the present moment that, having a body, surely we will get sick one day. Seeing this, naturally we will drop our arrogance about our good health. The path of right conduct will appear. We will make good use of our time and energy to do what's needed and not be carried away by senseless pursuits that can destroy
Enemy
our
UAV
bodies and
active.
minds. What we need to do will become clear. I am of the nature to die. I cannot escape death. This is the third
Reinforcements are on the way.
remembrance. Breathing in,
No second
I
chance.
know it is my nature to die. Breathing out, I know I can't escape dying. It's a simple and true fact that you are reluctant to face. You want this fact to get lost because you're afraid. It's painful for you to live deeply into it. Death is a reality that we have to confront. The subconscious mind is always trying to forget that. Because when we touch that fear and we are not equipped with the energy of mindfulness, we suffer. Our defense mechanism pushes us to forget. We don't want to hear about it. But in the back of our mind, the fear of death is always there, pushing on us. When we really face the fact that we will die one day, and maybe sooner than we think, we won't embarrass ourselves doing ridiculous things, keeping up the
What up?
delusion that we're going to live forever.
I said what happened to you earlier.
Contemplating our mortality helps us focus
Who?
our energy into the practice of transforming
No, Louis.
and healing ourselves and our world. All that is dear to
What's
me
up,
and everyone I
Lobo?
love are of the nature to change.
Get it.
There is no way to escape being separated from them. This is the fourth remembrance. Breathing in, I know that one day I will have to let go of everything and everyone I love. Breathing out, there is no way to bring them along. Everything that I cherish today, I will have to leave behind tomorrow, whether it is my house, my bank account, my children, or my beautiful partner. Everything that I cherish today, I will have to abandon. I cannot carry anything with me when I die. This is a scientific truth. What we cherish, what belongs to us today, won't be there tomorrow. We will have to take leave, not only of our most cherished objects, but also of the people we love. We can't take anything or anyone else with us in our death. Yet every day we strive to accumulate more and more money, knowledge, fame, and everything else. Even when we reach 60 or 70 years of age, we keep grasping for more knowledge, money, fame, and power. We know that the mementos and belongings we covet must all be abandoned one day. That's why those in monastic life practice not to collect things. The Buddha said monastics should have only 3 robes, a begging bowl, a water filter, and a sitting mat. And even these few things they also should be prepared to release. The Buddha often said that we should not be attached to even the foot of that tree where we like to sit and sleep. We should be able to sit and sleep at the foot of any tree. Our happiness should not depend on having that particular spot. We must be ready to let go. If we practice and are able to release, we can be free and happy right now, today. If we can't let go, we will suffer, not only on the day when we're finally forced to do so, but right now, today, and every day in between, because fear will be constantly stalking us.
Oh, shit.
There are old people who are still very greedy and stingy, like Scrooge, continuing to hoard everything. This is a shame. It's not because they're not smart enough to see that someday soon, maybe in just a few months, they'll have to let go of everything. It's because covetousness has become a habit. Throughout their lives, they've been seeking happiness in accumulating things. Even just 3 months before they pass away, that habit is still strong and prevents them from letting go. There's a Vietnamese legend about a rich man named Toc Shung, who was very proud because his storehouse had everything that could be found in the king's storehouse. He congratulated himself for having as much gold and treasure as the king himself.
Holding for deployment. Take this
The
time
king
to
asked
ready up.
Toc Shung one day whether he was sure he was the richer man. Toc Shung was so sure of himself, he wagered that if there was anything in the king's storehouse that wasn't in his own storehouse, he would give everything he owned to the king. This is the arrogance of wealth. With the king's ministers witnessing, the challenge began. Indeed, everything the king displayed, Toc Shung also had. But at the end of the day, there was one thing the king had that Toc Shung didn't have: a broken cooking pot. That broken cooking pot couldn't be used to make soup, but could be used to make fish or tofu dishes. The
Hostiles
Minister
dropping
of
into the
Justice
area.
declared that Toc
Watch the
Shung
skies.
had lost his wager. Toc Shung had to deliver on his vow and give all his property to the king. He was so upset that he turned into a lizard, always clicking his tongue. We don't want to become Toc Shung, searching for happiness in the accumulation of material things. The Buddha once told the monastics to look up at the sky at night to see the moon, and he asked them whether they saw how great the moon's happiness was as it traveled in a vast open space. As practitioners, we should allow ourselves to be free as the moon.
Enough training.
If we are attached to
Now you
obtaining
fight
more
a
and
real
more
enemy.
wealth, fame, power, sex, and love, we lose our freedom. I inherit the results of my acts, body, speech, and mind. My actions are my continuation. The fifth remembrance reminds us that when we die, the only things that continue us are our thoughts, words, and actions. That is, our karma. Breathing in, I know that I bring nothing with me
Resurgence.
except my thoughts,
Set a
words,
drop
and
point for your
deeds.
team, soldier.
Breathing out, only
Gas
my
is approaching
actions
your
come with
position.
me.
Get to the safe zone.
All the thoughts you have
I'm
thought,
moving. Wait,
all the
careful.
words you have
Moving
spoken,
here.
Redeploy fallen
All the
teammates
actions
and
you
earn
have done
points
with
to
your
return
body.
them faster.
these are your karma that follows and continues you.
I'm moving.
Hostile
Everything
dropping
else
into the
you leave
area.
behind.
Watch the skies.
Here, we are speaking of inheriting not our parents' savings, but the fruits of our own actions. What we have thought, said, and done is called
Kill
karma,
all targets.
which in Sanskrit
Go.
means action. What we do, say, and think continues on after the act is done, and its fruits follow us. Whether we want that inheritance or not, it stays with us. All our cherished belongings and loved ones we must leave behind. But our karma, the fruit of our actions, always follows us. We never can escape it. We never can say, "No, you have no right to pursue me." Karma is the ground on which we stand. We have only one foundation, and that is our karma. We have no other ground. We will receive the fruits of any act we have done, whether wholesome or unwholesome. Bringing mindfulness to the seeds of fear. The practice of the 5 remembrances helps us accept many of our deepest fears, such as old age, sickness, and death, as realities, facts we cannot escape. When we practice accepting these truths, we can realize peace and have the capacity to live conscious, healthy,
Enemy
and
precision
compassionate
airstrike.
lives,
Stay alert.
no longer causing
Enemy
suffering to
precision
ourselves and
airstrike. Stay
others.
alert.
Invite your fear into consciousness and smile through it. Every time you smile through your fear, you remind some of its strength. If you try to run away from your pain, there is no way out. Only by looking deeply into the nature of your
Do better
fear
this
can you
time.
find the way out. Contemplating the 5
One of your
remembrances,
allies is back
we
in the
bring
game.
mindfulness to the seed of fear in us. The seed of fear is there in us, and if we don't practice embracing it with mindfulness, then every time these truths show themselves, we will
One of
feel
your
very
allies is back
uncomfortable.
in the game.
Like ostriches that see a lion, we stick our heads in the sand.
You've got
Using
gas
diversions
moving in.
like television, computer
Bounty
games,
targets
alcohol,
down.
and
Marvelous.
drugs, we try to ignore the realities of aging, illness, death, and the impermanence of the things we cherish. If we allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by our fears, we will suffer, and the seed of fear in us will grow stronger. But when we are mindful, we use the energy of mindfulness to embrace our fear. Every time fear is embraced by mindfulness,
Everyone's
the
in.
energy
We're
of
good.
fear decreases before going back down to the depths of our consciousness as a seed. Our consciousness is like a circle in which the bottom part is our store consciousness, and the upper part is our
Loadout
mind
drop
consciousness.
Enemy
The fear of
UAV
aging,
active.
the fear of illness,
Enemy
the
UAV
fear of
active.
death, the fear of having to let go, and the fear of consequences of our
UAV
karma
active.
are all there in our store
Enemy UAV
consciousness.
active.
We don't want to face our fear, so we try to cover it up. Keep it down there in the cellar. We don't like it when somebody or something reminds us of it. We don't want it showing itself in our mind consciousness. Mindfulness is the opposite of this
An enemy
tendency.
team is hunting you.
We must
Don't
invite
become
these things
prey.
up into our mind consciousness every
Got a
day
loadout drop
and tell
inbound.
them, "My dear,
camping.
I am not
What
afraid
up?
of you. I'm not afraid of anything. It is my nature to grow
What's up?
old. I cannot
I haven't
escape
played with
old
Gas
you
is
age.
moving in.
I know, bro. It's
New
been hella
safe
When
long.
zone
fear
highlighted.
manifests, we want to have the seed of
throwing
mindfulness
snaps
also.
back.
Back when,
Nobody around here.
So we have two energies
back
present.
then.
The
Oh,
first is
wow.
the energy of fear, and the second is the energy of mind.
Couldn't hear you
Allied
for a
cluster
second.
strike arriving.
What were you saying, Planes?
I was saying I haven't played with you ever since I think my name was Mountain Pro.
It's been a minute, almost a year, bro.
Yeah.
There's still this personal
Here
supply.
located. Grenade
Oh,
out!
they're on us. They didn't ping on that, though. 2 bars.
Yeah, they're all behind us. Overlook.
Which way you guys want to push?
Got one down, Fucking dog.
Hey, T-mine's down.
Where you at, Planes?
Allied cluster strike arriving.
Enemy grenade out!
Oh, I got him.
Oh shit.
Enemy UAV active.
God, he was something.
One of your allies is back in the
There's a
game.
muni box and a enemy whatchamacallit loadout over here.
Enemy UAV active.
Somebody just popped up on that.
Enemy UAV active.
Oh, he down me?
Enemy UAV active.
He's coming up. He's coming up. He's coming up.
You lost the enemy
Oh my
track.
god, that fucking
He's coming up.
Enemy advanced UAV overhead. Be mindful.
Is that loadout still over there? Damn, they were surrounded.
Oh, what happened to the other guy?
I don't know. Ten seconds till I come back, bro.
Hey.
You're back in the action.
Loadout.
One of
was
your
stupid.
allies is back in the
Where'd I die
game.
at? Oh, it's in the gas already. No bueno. Don't know where to go. Loadout. Oh, okay. Made it to loadout.
Enemy UAV active.
What?
Ah, it's
Bull
hot. It's hot.
fucking
It's hot.
shit.
Got one on it.
God
The enemy
damn.
won this battle, but we'll be back to finish the war.
They spotted us.
Mindfulness. The fear receives a bath of mindfulness and becomes a little bit weaker before it drops back down to the depths of our consciousness
You didn't like
in the
that extra
form
before.
of a seed. Just because fear goes away
Turned
for a
out,
little
but I
while
didn't like
doesn't
it.
mean we have dissolved it completely. If we have a peaceful moment, a moment of meditation, we can call it up again. My dear fear, come up here so I can embrace you for a while. It is my nature to die. I cannot escape death. We can stay with our fear for 5, 10, 20, or 30 minutes, depending on our needs, and use the energy of mindfulness to embrace our fear. Being embraced like that every day, our fear will lose its strength. No coming, no going. Our greatest fear is that when we die, we will become nothing. Many of us believe our entire existence is limited to a particular period, our lifespan. We believe it begins when we are born, when, out of being nothing, we become something, and it ends when we die and become nothing again. So we are filled